Costa Rica, you make me high. Watch the pelicans in the sky. Love your beauty and your warmth. Costa Rica, join the dance.
Hello, it's the Past Life Detective here, and today I'd like to read you a very short but quite exciting story about my exotic trip to Costa Rica in 2017. And the title of the story is Stumbling Upon Goddess Isis. My first meeting with the Egyptian goddess Isis energy was on an ayahuasca retreat in tropical Costa, the Pacific side of Costa Rica, and no one was more surprised than me. Waking up was a gradual process for me. 30 years of self-development since leaving the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses led to an even deeper experience on this enlightenment journey, one that we're all on. Let me tell you about a story that started one particularly dreary afternoon, deep into the English wintry month of February. I'd invited my friend, the Oracle as I call her, over for a cup of tea and to give me a psychic reading. So far, so matrix. Teresa was shuffling the cards, but before she had a chance to start reading them, her spirit guides butted in and were showing her that I needed a holiday to refresh my energy and lift my spirits. They were transmitting a vision of a long white sandy beach lined with palm trees, somewhere hot. I hadn't had a beach holiday for decades, but I thought about it and grudgingly dismissed it again due to lack of funds. A few days later, I recalled watching a promo movie the summer before. It was called The Reality of Truth, starring Michelle Rodriguez of Fast and Furious and Lost fame. It promoted plant medicine, i.e. ayahuasca, at a gorgeous high-end spiritual retreat in Costa Rica, and it was called Rhythmia. Well, sometimes I just dream, and sometimes I manifest things that I've envisioned, and this was to be one of those mysterious times. A couple of weeks after my reading with Teresa, I was penning my second book, Past Lives That Matter, inspired by the medieval city I now live in, and I heard the post delivery as it plopped onto the mat. I trotted downstairs into the cold hallway, shivering, and saw that the letter was from my bank. My stomach sank, but astonishingly, they had written to say that they'd miscalculated the interest rate on my credit card. Well, this must have been accumulating for years because the enclosed cheque was made out to me in the amount of £2,700. I stood there with my mouth open and suddenly a warm feeling of gratitude and excitement began to rise through me, warming me on that chilly day. A huge smile widened over my face as I realised my dream holiday could become a reality. I hopped upstairs exuberantly and immediately checked the cost of the Rhythmia retreat. It was $2,699 for a shared room. I was stunned. This meant that, taking the 2017 exchange rate into consideration, I had £700 left over. When I looked at the flights, I was amazed to see they were approximately £700, spending the next month or two. No more, no less. I like to think of manifestation as a little dance between me getting my act together, my intention, prayer, and taking action. Taking baby steps as if it's already happening, and leaving it with God or Source, who's watching over me and meeting me at certain points. This two-way action usually seems to happen when it has something to do with helping me along my life path. 1 month later, I was boarding a plane, jetting off into the tropical sunshine. Rhythmia is a converted 5-star hotel with beautiful exotic gardens. A warm welcome was given upon arrival. Relaxing by the pool with a glass of cool coconut water, I met one of my 2 roommates, Manuela. We immediately connected and chatted away as we swam in the pool. We were to experience our first ayahuasca ceremony that evening and prepared ourselves excitedly for that. Drinking plenty of spring water, we lay down and relaxed for the opening ceremony. Once in the room, we were invited to partake of some South American rapé, a traditional tobacco which the female shaman blew into our nostrils. It was like the experience of snuff, I imagined, almost painful, but with the immediate effect of making me feel a little giddy and high. So I went and relaxed on my mattress while the others took their turn. Once we had meditated to the sound of drumming, we were ready to receive the plant medicine. This was a tiny cup full of dark liquid and tasted somewhat like very strong licorice liqueur, but without the alcohol. I was instructed to drink it down in 1 shot and then relax again on my bed, with a bucket and towel next to me for purging. Here we go, I thought. The sun had now set and it was pleasantly dark and slightly cooler at 28 degrees centigrade, with the familiar whirring hum of cicadas resonating through the tropical breeze. The large glass doors on all sides of the room had been opened out to let in the humid night air, and with it the sounds of the jungle, including the odd monkey call. We were to work through some deep personal fears and witness the dark side of our shadow selves in the next few days. This led to facing certain anxieties and traumas which needed to be cleared to raise our energy vibration. We were assured that we could discuss what came up at the processing circle the next day. After our first 2 ceremonies, we all knew more or less what to expect, but were looking forward to experiencing the positive upliftment we'd heard from others which comes within the 3rd ceremony of the week. It turned into quite a dramatic night. I felt differently that evening, lighter and more positive, and then the vomiting started. Deeper into the ceremony, I was again aware of one of my roommates. She was crying and having a bad time. Suddenly the shaman glided over to me as she saw what I could feel, a strong energy coming into me from above and behind my head into my body. Whispering in my ear, she told me that her guides had given me permission to call Angela's soul back. I felt deeply honoured. Without disturbing my friend, I began to journey silently on her behalf, and was aware of travelling on the search for her missing soul shard, just as a shaman would do. Eventually I saw it hiding under a stone in my mind's eye, and sat next to it, having a conversation. I said that I knew it had left Angela before because it didn't feel safe in her body, and she'd created a welcoming and safe place for her soul piece to come back. After some persuasion, it agreed to come back with me, so we journeyed back from the wilderness of Middle-earth. I visualised taking and placing it gently back into Angela's heart space, blowing on it to seal it into her chakra, and covering it over again. Later in the ceremony, our shaman played a beautiful song called The Healing Times, which includes the chant, "We are the witches of the burning times." Suddenly, all three of us roommates sat upright on our mattresses at exactly the same time. It was as if this was a calling to us to rise up as wise women and throw off the shackles of any past life trauma. I started to feel very light and happy and wanted to move around and dance, which I hadn't done in a few hours. I had a long floaty dress on and started to sway to the music and smile at the others in the room, some of whom were also moving gently in time to the music. I stretched out my arms at my sides to allow the energy to flow around me and thought that I would imagine a rainbow forming between my upstretched palms, arching over my head. All of a sudden, I felt the strong energy of a goddess or a queen. It was as if I was standing firm on an Egyptian longboat at the head of a naval fleet. I seemed to be holding an arched bow with the arrow stretched taut and trained on the vast dark ocean ahead of me. I knew I was leading them going into battle. Sometimes I felt the courage draining out of me, and my warcraft would sway to the side and go off course, but I always managed to bring it back in line and forge ahead. It seemed to me that the energy was that of Goddess Isis, and I loved the feeling of bravery she imbued in me. As I slipped out of my reverie, the shaman started to wind down the evening. It was nearly midnight, and I was sitting on my mattress again. I noticed Angela staring at me in the darkness. It seemed to take her longer than everyone else to come up out of the medicine, and we agreed to help her onto one of the golf buggies. She didn't seem capable of walking. Back at our room, we lay quietly on our beds, but none of us were able to sleep, and eventually we started to speak of our experiences that evening. I described how I'd been creating an imaginary rainbow, and Manuela exclaimed she'd looked across at me and seen coloured lights around my head. Angela excitedly recalled she even saw a rainbow form over me. Suddenly she turned to me and uttered that she knew I'd been helping her and thanked me from the bottom of her heart. She told us that she'd been staring at me in the darkness during the ceremony because she saw the face of her black mother materialise over my face, followed by her grandmother, and then her great-grandmother, and so on, going right back down her ancestral line. At this point in the conversation, I admitted that I had been working on a soul fragment retrieval with her, and she said that she knew I was doing something, but she wasn't sure what. Then Angela explained that before the ceremony, she'd prayed to her ancestors to come in and to help her, as she was unable to see anything at all during any of the sessions, both at this and all previous ayahuasca retreats that she had visited. All she'd ever experienced was darkness, and never the amazing palette of moving colours and shapes and wonderful visions that others often described. She felt she was blocked in some way, and was so hoping she could make a healing breakthrough to clear the crying and weeping that always accompanied her experiences. Angela began to remember how the shaman had walked over to her before the start of the ceremony and exclaimed that she could see that Angela had a lot of people or spirit family around her that evening. It seemed that the way had been paved for me to work with her loving ancestors on clearing the bloodlines and breaking the pattern of pain and slavery from distant past generations. I'd asked to clear this into her future timelines too, as I know that we've come forth in this time frame with the ability to end cycles of suffering for our children too. I had one ceremony token left and she had none, so I gave her mine as I felt it would be good for her to progress with the work I had started. Sure enough, on the last day, the Saturday, she excitedly told me over breakfast, during her last and fourth ceremony the evening before, Her ancestors had once again accompanied her, but this time they'd lined up to give her a piece of their heart and press it into her heart chakra. As each one passed by, she thanked them deeply with reverence from the distant past, so that it would stop with her and be cleared for her future family line. It was a truly humbling, awakening experience for both of us. Totally unique, and a memory I will treasure for a lifetime. I felt so honoured to have partaken in this shamanic ancestral healing, along with our spirit guides, and it taught me a lot about the power of good that this can affect, as we rise in the shining and sacred feminine souls that we are, and always have been. I had accidentally stumbled upon the goddess, Isis, and made my connection for what was to come when I visited her temples in Egypt the following year. Thank you for listening to Isisi Allthings, aka The Past Life Detective.
Costa Rica, you make me high. Watch the pelicans in the sky. Love your beauty and your warmth. Costa Rica, join the dance.